Hello and happy Tuesday, which is of course my book reviews day. This is Too Many Books. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk to you about I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, where I'm actually going to showcase, 2.5 editions. Two of them are both the same. We have, my friends, the Suntup Arc for this legendary title. No pun intended. The Folio Society Standard Edition and the Suntup Numbered Edition. Now, the Numbered Edition and the Arc have the exact same contents, but it's going to be easier to show you the artwork in the Arc because it's, easily seen on the straight cut paper as opposed to the deckled edges. So I will be showcasing these as I'm talking about it. I will give more details about the editions after I'm done talking about the novel itself. Just know that the Suntup edition has artwork by Alan Williams, and the Folio Society edition has artwork by the great Dave McKean. So, I Am Legend. Very, very early Richard Matheson novel written when he was in his 20s. It's been adapted into film 3 times. All 3 take their own liberties with the story. The most recent and most popular, in my opinion, of the 3 films. I know it was a huge smashing success at the box office with Will Smith, is basically just this novel in terms of title alone. Now, this novel is a precursor to pretty much the zombie subgenre of horror that you see. I mean, this is technically a vampire novel, but it actually shares more with like George Romero's zombies in terms of infection, in terms of, meandering dead coming back to life. But you actually realize within the novel, there's actually 2 types of vampires. There is, as I mentioned, the dead vampires, and there's also a sort of cast of vampires that are, alive and just kind of living with the disease. Although, the vampires in this novel do take place, do follow some of the vampire tropes, including an aversion to garlic, an aversion to crosses, or not necessarily always crosses, an aversion to holy relics or holy symbols. I'm surprised I've never actually read this novel prior to reading it here. I mean, I've seen all 3 of the films, The Last Man on Earth with Charlton Heston. The Last Man on Earth was with Vincent Price. The Omega Man was with Charlton Heston. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I Am Legend with Will Smith. But it's always been on my reading list, and one that I could never get around to. It's a very short read. I mean, we're looking at like 160 pages. It's almost like a long novella or a very short novel. One thing you do have to know going in is that this was written 70 years ago. As such, there's going to be some outdated concepts within the writing. Some of the writing has not aged incredibly well. I'm sad to say. Robert Neville, who finds himself being the last man on Earth, or seeming to be the last man on Earth, surviving night after night against a horde of zombie vampires who are, banging at his door. He's constantly being intimidated by Cortland, a neighbor and friend from pre-pandemic times. And he's trying his best to survive. But he's got a bit of a drinking problem and a bit of anger issues at times, throwing a lot of tantrums. I mean, he, you kind of get like the toxic masculinity vibes, and you definitely get that from Robert Neville. He's unfortunately not a very likable protagonist, I'm sad to say. Maybe he was back 70 years ago, but I don't think he's aged very well. So going in, know that Robert Neville is not the most likable character. He's not a very enjoyable human being. And the novel itself almost feels episodic. If I were to discover that Richard Matheson had intended this to be like, short stories, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you have your world-building chapters where, he's kind of going out into the world, hunting down vampires by day, there's chapters where he's doing research in the library. Speaking of which, the research, I mean, it's ahead of its time, that's for sure, being written in the 50s. But some of the concepts are a little goofy. One such concept is the idea of body glue. Essentially, the virus has a fast-acting body glue that prevents the vampires from being injured by like gunshots, which is kind of goofy, but okay, you know, I mean, it's ahead of its time in that regard. There's the few chapters, or the episode, if you will, of him befriending or trying to earn the trust of a dog that he sees in the neighborhoods. Then all of a sudden, a few chapters later, you have the episode about him running into Ruth, a woman in the pandemic here. And then you have, I guess you could say, the finale, as it is, where it all kind of reaches a head, and comes to a head, and the shit hits the fan, if you were so to say. So yeah, I mean, he has some very tantrum-esque moments throughout this novel. There are a couple moments near the end of the novel where he runs into Ruth, the female character he runs into, where he literally says, "Man, if I ran into you some time ago, I would have had my way with her." And I'm sitting here reading this thinking like, Jesus. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe that flew a little better back in the 1950s. I mean, Richard Matheson is not an author to shy away from sexual content like that. I did a whole review on Hell House where I thought that, one of the character's greatest fears was thoughts of lesbian, feelings. And, it's that kind of vein that unfortunately hasn't aged as well. But the general concept that is provided by Richard Matheson, the sort of delving into the human psyche, delving into one man's survival is really where I Am Legend shines. And that is kind of the big takeaway. As a vampire novel, where it completely slags Dracula, I don't think it really holds up as much over the years. But as a precursor to the zombie genre or subgenre of horror, it is superb. As a study of isolation, one man in a pandemic, it is absolutely top-notch. It is an incredible character study that is absolutely worth reading. But man, I Am Legend, you could pick up copies wherever books are sold. It has never quite gone out of print, but one hell of a good read. And I think the philosophical final chapter, which is where I'm not going to go into spoiler territory, but the final chapter, he's doing philosophical ponderings, which is kind of where the title actually comes from, is just like chef's kiss level good. Like I applaud it. So while there are aspects that didn't age quite as well, overall, I enjoyed the hell out of this. So anyways, that is a brief synopsis, brief little review of I Am Legend. Let's actually talk about the details of these 3 editions. I haven't actually showcased the numbered edition yet, but I'll get to that in a moment. I did flip through the artwork here in the ARC, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of put that on the side for right now. I will say I do enjoy Alan Williams' absolutely dark as hell artwork. It is really good, even though it is a little weird to see Robert Neville portrayed as, quite frankly, the Undertaker, but, it is what it is. Unfortunately, the Suntup edition does not feature any additional bonus content. There is no introduction, there's no afterward. All you are getting is the novel itself. It was published in 3 states, an artist edition, which I no longer have, which features the same artwork, but it's printed offset. It features a slipcase with the hand artwork by Alan Morris right there. That artwork on the slipcase. But it does feature the original paperback artwork reproduced on the dust jacket. It is superb. Then, of course, you have this numbered edition with the beautiful marbled. Is that really marbled? It's marbled-esque. It's printed. It's not true marbling. But the paper for the boards, quarter bound in vellum, absolutely stunning. Letterpress printed with decal edges. This edition is superb. This is the edition to own, in my opinion, of I Am Legend. I am a huge fan of what Paul Suntup did with this title. It is top-notch. Like, it is a true fine-pressed treatment of this novel. It is a little bit more difficult to find the artwork within, if you're looking specifically for the artwork, because it does hide amongst the deckled page edges, which is why I showcased the ARC. But the artist edition does not have the deckled page edges, but it is, of course, signed by Alan Williams in the back all the editions are signed by Alan Williams. There's really no difference in terms of signature pages because there is no introductory author. But of course, I do love the slipcase as well as top-notch slipcase. And then, of course, you have the Folio Society edition. There's actually two Folio editions. There was the standard edition, which you see before you here. There was also a limited edition back in the day, which I don't think it was signed by Joe Hill. I think it was just signed by Dave McKean, but that had a leather-bound cover, if I'm not mistaken, with a cross motif or cross design on it. I like the standard edition here. It's pretty nice. It's a strange trim size for books. I mean, it's obviously almost like a paperback size in terms of width, but it's actually taller than most books in terms of height. It's a strange trim size, but it's a nice little cloth bound, a little, colored cloth there. It has the I am in the slipcase. One thing that the Folio Society edition does do that you are not going to find in the Suntup edition is it has an introduction by Joe Hill. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed that it's an introduction and not an afterward. I mean, it serves well enough as an introduction. It serves well enough as a supplementary piece, but it has no restraint on spoilers. I mean, it literally says, Joe Hill starts off his introduction that spoilers are like garlic, they provoke anguish, so-and-so. But this is a Folio Society edition, and it costs you more than a box of silver bullets. My guess is there's nothing for me to spoil. So he just has no restraint on spoilers. He dives right in. He has a really good piece kind of focusing on Matheson as an author, focusing on its influence on the zombie genre, and then also talking about the triumph of a psychological study of man facing loneliness in a pandemic, a man by himself at the end of the world. It does really nice job with Joe Hill's introduction, but it would have served better as an afterword, in my opinion, just because, I mean, some people might be going in reading this for the first time, and you're not going to want to read that introduction first. Although, he does at least warn you that he's going to go into spoiler territory with his opening introduction, his opening paragraph of introduction, so you're not going to be caught off guard when spoilers are suddenly thrust upon you. I don't actually know if the Folio Society edition is still in print. It might be out of print now. I know the Suntup edition is long out of print. I believe the artist edition is relatively cheap. I mean, it's not as cheap as current artist editions from Suntup, but it's not on the pricier side either. I will say, if you do have the ability to go out and you want a fine press, a nice edition of it, the numbered edition is absolutely superb. You cannot go wrong with that. It is one of the most underrated numbered editions that Suntup has done, in my opinion. It took a while to actually sell out, most likely in part due to the heftier price tag that it started with and not having any supplemental material. This was the first Suntup title that did not have an introduction or afterword or artist signature. I should say artist signature because I don't think Misery technically had an introduction, but was signed by Stephen King, which goes a long way. But I mean, Matheson has long since passed, so there's that. Out there, if you're looking for other fancy editions or one signed by Richard Matheson, I know Gauntlet Press did do their own edition back in the 90s, which was the author's definitive text signed by Matheson. I don't actually know if that one has an introduction or an afterword either. I actually don't even know if that one has artwork, but that one is, I believe, kind of like a faux leather cover signed by Matheson. I do not have that one to showcase. But anyways, there's a lot, and like I said, the trade edition is available wherever books are sold, so you are not going to miss out on an edition of I Am Legend if you want to just read it for the story itself. If you are looking for other very fancy Richard Matheson versions, this is actually the first of what is now going to be 4 or 3.5, depending on how you look at it, Matheson titles done by Suntup. This is one of the earliest ones, one of Suntup's earliest titles. And then last year, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, they did Hell House by Richard Matheson. They also recently just did Born a Man and Woman, the short story in a fine press edition. I actually did unboxings for both of those on my channel. And then just this past week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, they announced the full Born a Man and Woman short story collection by Matheson, which looks superb. And that is actually available to purchase or pre-order in all 3 editions: Artist Edition, Numbered Edition, lettered edition. So if you want a lettered edition from Suntup, it's going to cost you many, many pretty pennies, but you can just go on their site and buy it right now. The numbered edition and lettered edition are both letterpress printed, which looks incredible. Absolutely incredible. Artist edition is just I think it's offset printed, so it's not going to be letterpress printed, but it's still going to be very nice. But if you were to go out and search, you could get a nice matching, not matching in terms of number, but matching in terms of aesthetic style with some nice higher end Matheson titles, such as I Am Legend, Hell House, and then Born a Man and Woman. Oddly enough, I think the artist edition of Hell House actually matches the numbered edition of I Am Legend in terms of aesthetic. Like I said, you can check that out on my my channel here if you want to see that for yourself. The numbered edition looks very nice too. It has like ostrich leg leather for the spine, which is very cool. Outside of my budget though. And then oddly enough, Born a Man Woman seems to be stretching away from both of those altogether. The numbered edition there is going to have a clamshell case, so it's not going to quite match this. The artist edition doesn't appear to match it either. So anyways, I'm just rambling now. Thank you guys very much for watching. Check out I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. It might not have aged perfectly well over the course of 70 years, but it's still one hell of a read, especially for seeing the grandfather of the zombie subgenre as we now come to know and love it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I do at least one book review a week with plenty of unboxings in between here and there, including various Folio Society titles when I get them, Suntup titles when I get them, and everything else in between. So anyways, check out Suntup Editions. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you around next time.